All right, this one's pretty interesting. Donald Trump was recently interviewed by conservative reporter Cheryl Atkinson, and then Trump visibly died inside when Atkinson dared broach the subject of the so-called Epstein files related to deceased human trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, who was both a friend of Donald Trump's at one point and who died under mysterious circumstances in prison when Donald Trump was president and in charge of Epstein's safety. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I want to play this clip here. We've actually discussed a previous interview that Trump had with Atkinson before the election, before he became president. And again, she's a conservative reporter, I think based out of Florida. She tends to ask softball questions, but every now and then she'll lob a softball at him and somehow Trump will still get hit in the face with it. And this is when the topic turns to Jeffrey Epstein. And I want you to note his tone, his face, how he answers the question, and what he refuses to say.
There's a lot of intrigue surrounding the release of the Epstein files, Martin Luther King files, John F. Kennedy files. Some current and former FBI agents are saying, some of them telling me, that they feel the FBI establishment came out ahead in the standoff sort of with the New York FBI field office over releasing the records and your Attorney General Pam Bondi demanding them but not getting all that she wanted. Is that process still on track? I think that's one of the most often questions I've been asked the last couple of days, to release these records on Epstein, MLK, and JFK.
Well, Pam Bondi's done a phenomenal job in every respect. And there could have been some holdback. I haven't heard too much about it, but they could. But the bottom line is the records are getting out. The Kennedy records are getting out. Those are the ones I really wanted to see the most, with the Kennedys. And during my administration, as you know, I released a lot of them, but then a lot of people started coming in, people that I respected, people that worked for the administration, asked me not to release the rest. And I respected that. They gave me certain reasons, but I respected that. And I did say, I must tell you, I said that probably wish I did release the whole thing because I have no idea what's in there. But since then they found, and we found 2,000 more documents on Kennedy. And the one they want most is Kennedy, and it's going to be released. It's moving along, and it's moving along pretty rapidly. It doesn't go that rapidly.
Weeks maybe, or longer?
I say weeks, yeah, I say weeks.
Well, let me switch gears.
So you see he's like sweating and he keeps repeating himself. And, you know, it's Kennedy, the files of Kennedy. Kennedy's the one that everybody wants to know about. You know, Kennedy, that Kennedy guy, you know, that President John F. Kennedy. Those are the files. Like, those are some big files. The Kennedy files are really the ones that everybody wants. Can we please change the fucking subject? So funny. He doesn't want to touch Epstein with a 10-foot pole. And it reminded me, of course, of this infamous interview on Fox and Friends weekend that Trump had again during the election season, during the campaign, but before the election. Trump was asked about the Epstein files, the JFK files, the 9/11 files, and others, but again, the Epstein files as well. And I want you to see his response from several months ago because it's totally commensurate with the sort of nervousness that you just saw.
One way to build trust is to declassify things that everyone's talking about. I know you talked earlier about it. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Yeah. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you know, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
One way to build trust is to
9/11 files? Yeah. JFK files? Yeah. Epstein files? Yeah. Maybe not the Epstein files. I mean, like, there's just so much, like, and really, who wants to know about the Epstein files? So funny that Donald Trump is so transparent in this. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find another article here in real time. You start thinking about these things, and it's like, There's so many things come to mind. There was a really good New Yorker article I should have had pulled up, which goes into the timeline of the long relationship that Donald Trump had with Jeffrey Epstein. Probably be too long to read here in this video. But again, what we're seeing is Donald Trump visibly nervous and hedge when it comes to the release of the so-called files and documents pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein, deceased human trafficker, I think he was a billionaire. I don't know if he's a multi-billionaire, who socialized with Hollywood elite, liberals and conservatives. But yes, Donald Trump, they had a years-long friendship. They've been photographed beside each other. Trump's been in interviews saying Jeffrey likes him young, which is really sinister when you consider what we eventually learned about Jeffrey Epstein. And Pam Bondi, Donald Trump's attorney general, MAGA has been demanding the release of these files, and Pam Bondi said, you're going to get them. Well, it's not happening. And now Senate Democrats are pouncing, and rightly so. Senate Democrats question Pam Bondi's motives in Epstein documents release. The Democratic Senate Judiciary Committee's accounts flagged that the attorney who handled Ghislaine Maxwell's case was put on leave. Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee are applying pressure to Attorney General Pam Bondi over her bungled rollout of government files related to Jeffrey Epstein, the late alleged sex trafficker whose list of high-profile associates included Donald Trump, Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., and former President Bill Clinton. Bondi's highly anticipated rollout of revelatory Epstein documents landed as a dud, even among some conspiratorial right-wingers. And you recall, we did a video about this, right? The day that the Epstein files were supposed to be released, binders were given to right-wing influencers like Libs of TikTok at the White House. Total disingenuous, total shit show. Even Laura Loomer, diehard MAGA cultist, close associate of Donald Trump, was like, this is BS. This was mismanaged. This was dishonest. It suggests something far more sinister. So again, she caught flack for it when they failed to provide any new information. Bondi has since claimed to have uncovered another cache of documents in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York and said the Justice Department would need to go through them to redact certain details for national security reasons and to protect victims. Online, Democrats have accused Bondi of withholding documents and raised questions about whether she's conspiring to use her promised document dump to protect Trump or his associates, even suggesting her recent decision to place a top Justice Department official on leave may be related to the Epstein case. Senate Judiciary Democrats' X account drew attention to Bondi's sidelining of Andrew Rohrback, a prosecutor who worked on the federal cases against both New York Mayor Eric Adams and Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. Quote, Pam Bondi just put the attorney who successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell on leave. The account posted on Monday. It quoted a thread from the previous week that highlighted Trump and Kennedy's relationships with Epstein. What are they hiding? It is interesting. And I guess we'll click this link. A thread. Trump official Alex Acosta gave Epstein a sweetheart deal when he was a U.S. attorney. Trump official RFK Jr. was a friend of Epstein and flew on his private plane twice. Trump advisor Elon Musk was subpoenaed in the Epstein investigation. Trump was president when Epstein died in federal prison. Trump himself, quote, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's got a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Both Pam Bondi and Kash Patel talked a big game about releasing the Epstein files. What are they waiting for? It's a pretty reasonable question. And again, it goes into details about a bit more of the history between Trump and RFK Jr. and Epstein. As soft as this resistance from Democrats may seem, launched via social media posts and not apparently in the halls of Congress, which, by the way, they should be bringing it up relentlessly. Jared Moskowitz, a more moderate, if not centrist Democrat from Florida, whose recent decisions I disagree with immensely, but he is a firebrand when it comes to rhetoric and wit and putting Democrats on the offense in Congress against their Republican counterparts. He brought it up. We've played that clip a gazillion times. He even had a giant poster board of Epstein and Trump hugging side by side from like the 90s or the early 2000s. And he actually addressed it on the floor of Congress. There needs to be more of that. It does appear to be the most sustained effort by Democrats in any official capacity to bring attention to Trump and his associates' ties to Epstein, which is noteworthy given Democrats' rather odd decision to cede the field on the topic to far-right influencers who might attempt to use the files to attack Democrats linked to Epstein, like former President Bill Clinton or former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. For whatever reason, Democrats have reached a point where they don't seem comfortable letting Bondi or Trump's Justice Department frame the story, nor should they. Democrats should be relentless in this. Again, people have noted that Attorney General Bondi says more Epstein files are coming, but doesn't give a time frame. Well, that's kind of sus. Again, Jared Moskowitz, I was going to play a clip here, was asked about it recently. But again, they're just, making fun of Pam Bondi about Trump's Epstein connection. But listen, this is a valid form of attack. This is a valid line of attack, and Democrats need to flex their rhetorical muscle and play the game ruthlessly. Donald Trump has salacious ties to one of the most sinister figures in modern American history, Jeffrey Epstein, one of the most controversial ones, accused of terrible crimes, and the evidence seems very, very compelling. And he died while Trump was president. When Epstein died, he was in federal prison in 2019, and the Bureau of Prisons is part of the Justice Department, and the Justice Department reported at the time to Trump Attorney General Bill Barr, who ultimately reported to Donald Trump himself as president. So yes, Donald Trump was responsible for Epstein's safety, and Epstein died under mysterious circumstances in federal prison. All of this are valid lines of attack for Democrats, and it's good to see that they're starting to turn that temperature up. They need to do so even more and relentlessly in one voice, because it is possible that Attorney General Pam Bondi and Donald Trump will game the refs, so to speak, and redact. They can say redact for national security purposes, but how the hell would we ever find out if the black bars are there blocking out the text? It wouldn't be the first time that a Trump attorney general like Bill Barr attempted to frame a really bad report for Donald Trump in Trump's favor, like Bill Barr did with the Mueller report. So again, people should be asking questions, and they should be doing it in one voice. And again, just love to see the sort of sweaty, nervous reaction from Trump anytime Epstein's name is brought up. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.